Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Immigration Fridays. I'm your host, Prashanthi, and we're here again to guide you through the ever evolving maze of US immigration. This week's been a real roller coaster. So, buckle up and let's dive in. What are we going to be talking about this week? This week, we will talk about H4 EADs. What is a H4 EAD? Who's eligible? How do you file for one? And what is the future of H4 EAD under the Trump administration? So let's start. Let's start off with what is a H4 EAD? A H4 EAD is employment authorization or a work permit for spouses of H1B visa holders. It allows certain H4 dependents to work in the US while H1B visa holder is in valid status. So who are those certain H4 dependents who can get an EAD? Let's look into that further. So if you are on a H4 EAD, that is if your spouse is on a H1, then if your spouse has an approved I-140, or if your spouse has a labor certification that's been pending for 1 year, or has an I-140 that has been pending for 1 year, then you are eligible to file for employment authorization. Now you may ask, how do I file for employment authorization? You have to file an I-765 form to do this, and you can do this online. And you have to make sure that you do not start working until you actually get the physical copy of the employment authorization card. What documents are required? Basically, you need to submit, of course, the I-765 form, the proper fees, evidence of relationship, such as your marriage certificate, your ID, such as your passport or driver's license, evidence of eligibility. So you have to show that your spouse qualifies, so an I-140 approval or proof of labor cert filing or a receipt of the I-140 filing showing that 365 days has elapsed would be evidence of eligibility. You also have to show proof that you are on valid H4 status, and that would be a copy of the I-94 or copy of the I-797 notice. Now let's go through some frequently asked questions with reference to H4 EAD. So the first one is, how is my H4 affected by the Edekuni settlement? So this is new. This is something new that's happened in the H4 EAD universe as of January 2023, as per the Edekuni settlement. So there was a lawsuit filed by many organizations, by many bodies, basically against USCIS, because USCIS was taking a long time to process H4 EADs. And they were no longer processing them like they used to, along with the H1s. So basically what the lawsuit says is that USCIS was taking an inordinate amount of time to process H4 EADs, and this led to almost the nullifying of H4 EADs because it was taking over a year to process a H4 EAD, and this means that people couldn't use it. So as per the settlement, USCIS has agreed to process and approve H4s, H4 EADs along with the H1B of the spouse. So if the H1B is being filed in premium processing, your H4 EAD or your H4 will also get approved at the same time. But this is provided you filing your H1 and H4 together. If you file your H4 separately, then you will not get that benefit. The next question is, can I continue to work on an EAD if I filed a renewal application on time? So if you file your H4 EAD before it expired, then yes, there is something called automatic extension of work authorization, and you will be allowed to continue to work. And this is also something new. It wasn't there under the previous administration. So you'll be allowed to continue to work on your EAD even after it has expired, as long as you file on time. However, this depends on your H4 status. If your I-94 expires, then you will have to stop working, but as long as your I-94 is valid, you can continue working on your EAD even after the EAD has expired, provided you have filed before the expiry. Now, the next question that a lot of people ask me is, can I work for any employer with my H4 EAD? Absolutely. You're not tied to any one employer, unlike a H1. You can work for any employer. You can work for multiple employers. and you can do any kind of job. You can work in McDonald's if you want to. The next question that I get asked is, can I open a business? Can I be an entrepreneur on a H4 EAD? Absolutely. A H4 EAD is in fact much better than a H1 because again, you're not tied to one employer, or you do not need a sponsor or someone to sponsor you. You can file this application, EAD application yourself, and you can start a business as long as you're not, it's a business that you're lawfully allowed to start. And you can continue owning and running that business and taking money from the business as long as you're on H4 EAD. And what should happen if your EAD expires and you continue to work? Now you are allowed to, under certain circumstances, of course, to work on an expired EAD, as I mentioned before. But if those circumstances don't exist, then you cannot work on a H4 EAD. It would be unauthorized employment. You will be violating your H4 status, and this could lead to problems with extension, problem with getting a visa, problem with coming back into the country if you leave the country, if they find out that you worked without authorization. And also denial of any future immigration benefits, such as, if you file for a green card, your green card might get denied. Now, coming to the most important question of the hour, what is the future for H4 EAD under the Trump administration? Now, just to let you know some history, in Trump's previous term in 2018, his administration announced its intention to eliminate the rule that allows his spouses to work. So they wanted to eliminate the H4 EAD. For that, they had to publish a regulation. It was on their agenda, in their regulatory agenda. But they never got down to doing it, I guess because they did not have the time to do it, and they had many other rules that they had to process. So they didn't have the time. They had, they had their hands full on other things. But now they'll have plenty of time if they want to do the rulemaking and remove H4 EAD from the regulations if they want to. There is a certain process that they have to follow, and it could be taken to court. But let's see what happens. But if they want to, yes, they can definitely change the regulation with reference to H4 EAD. Is it easy? It is. There is a process involved. It is time consuming. So let's see what they do. It depends on what their priorities are. But even without doing that, like they did in 2015, like they did in 2018 and during Trump's first term, they could effectively stop H4 EAD simply by making it more difficult for H4 EAD spouses to apply for an EAD, such as requiring fingerprinting, and making the processing time so lengthy that it's almost making H4 EADs redundant. If they're going to take 12 to 18 months to process a H4 EAD, then it's impossible to hold a job and not work, and no employer will wait for you, right, for that amount of time. So it's as good as not having a H4 EAD. So they can definitely do that. And there were lawsuits filed, as a result of the delay in processing and the fingerprint requirement. And luckily, as I was saying earlier, in 2023, that was the decode versus Mayorkas. That lawsuit, the USCIS lost it, and then there was a settlement agreement whereby USCIS was forced to process the H4s along with the H1s, thereby increasing or rather improving the H4 processing time. So that's it. That's a wrap for Immigration Fridays this week. As you know, immigration laws and processes can be very complex. So if you need any legal help with reference to H4s or any other processing, please feel free to reach out. My number is 212-354-1010. My email is prashanthi@reddyesq.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.